These are the new metal releases for this week of February 20th. And I have 7 releases, very diverse. I got bands coming out of Europe, one right from the States, everything in between. Genre-wise, we're all over the place this week. We've got melodic death metal, Deathgrind, horror-themed death metal, avant-garde progressive stuff, and other stuff that's hard to categorize. Punk-influenced rock, black thrash straight out of Germany, a concept EP about Godzilla and those kind of monsters and such, and a lot of cool stuff here. So, as always, I give each album a score out of 10, and then I'm going to rank them from my lowest score to the highest score. It's a little more fun that way. So, now let me get started. Kicking things off at number 7, we have the debut album from a black and thrash metal band out of Dresden, Germany, called Injector. The album is called Witching Attack. This was recorded over 7 days back in August of 2025 at Steroid Studios in Saxony, and for debut, it is a pretty solid effort. These guys are clearly pulling from classic extreme metal. They're not trying to hide it. Very much an homage to the early days of the genre, and they wear that on their sleeve. The album opens with a track called Siege Upon Heaven, sets the tone right away. It starts with a slow, dark, ominous build with some creepy church organs, then drops into a first-wave black metal sound that reminded me a lot of Venom. That's a good sign for a black thrash record, by the way. But another song, Sacrifice This Bitch, that's a pretty cool song. It has a slower build, has some dark arpeggiated guitars, before moving into a mid-paced thrasher. Then you get Evil Executioner, which is pretty much exactly like it sounds. Straightforward black thrash, and it doesn't mess around. The title track, Witching Attack, keeps the dark and heavy black and thrash energy going. Then Chains switches things up a little bit with some cool heavy metal style guitar riffs and some high-pitched vocals that gave me these King Diamond vibes, which I always appreciated. The album closes with Angel Destructor, and probably my favorite track on the record. There's a drum intro that really pulled me in immediately, and the whole track has some serious Motorhead energy to it. My final score for this one is going to be a 7.9 out of 10, which is my lowest score out of all these, but that's not a bad score. It's still like a solid album, but it's a great debut. They're not reinventing the wheel. It's well-executed love letter to classic black and thrash metal. If that's your thing, check it out, because I think you will enjoy it. Next is AmongRuins from Athens, Greece, and the album Advent of Chaos. They are a melodic death metal band. They formed back in 2012, and they started as a side project, members from a symphonic metal group called Bare Infinity. And that band dissolved, so AmongRuins became the main focus. The latest album is described as an evolution into darker territory for the band. They have some guests on the record, with the singer from Elysian and another singer from Mother of Millions. The album opens with a track called Frozen to the Core, and right away you get a sense of what the band is about. You hear the sound of wind blowing in the background, and melodic lead guitars, and it slowly starts to build, and the whole thing is just very cold and epic, and it reminds me a lot of AmongRuins, and that comparison is a good thing, like that earlier AmongRuins stuff. Advent of Chaos, the title track, continues in that direction with melodic leads layered over heavy chugging guitars, harsh vocals, and some pounding drums. Kind of track that showcases the core of what the band does well. One of the highlights for me was Into the Flame. It features the guest vocals from Christiana of the band Elysium. So having the both male and female vocals on that track adds a really nice layer to the sound and gives the album some variety. My final score for this one will be an 8 out of 10. It's a solid melodic death metal album. It's not doing anything that's never been done before in a genre, but it's well put together, and the musicianship is there. Plus, they're from Greece, and you know I love Greek bands. That's like one of my favorite countries. And check it out. At number 5, we have one of the bigger name bands, but I've never listened to them before this week, and they are Exhumed out of San Jose, California. The album is called Red Asphalt. It's their 10th full-length studio album through Relapse Records. Exhumed are a Deathgrind band with a long history. This new record marks a pretty interesting thematic shift for them. They moved away from the 19th century graveyard and B-movie horror themes they are known for, and they turned their focus entirely to the horrors of the American roadway. Think of vehicular homicide, highway accidents, anxiety of being on the road for extended periods of time. Apparently, part of the inspiration came from a serious van accident back in the 90s involving one of the band members. Musically, they keep their signature Deathgrind speed intact, but this album introduces some sleazier grooves and a more organic production style compared to their past work. Unsafe at Any Speed has one of the cooler music videos I've seen in a while. Opens with a short skit set in some kind of mandatory driving safety class, and then the instructor puts on a film showing this car crash footage, and that's when the music kicks in. It's a really cool music video. Like the music video goes on for 2 minutes before the music even starts. But the title track, Red Asphalt, slows things down, brings in some melodic guitar work, and that's a nice contrast. Shock Trauma goes back to full speed, old school digression with heavy grindcore feel. Shovelhead's a little slower and groovier, and it has an animated music video with all these horrible things that can happen on the road. It's kind of it's pretty cool, and you gotta watch it. And then the Iron Graveyard closes things out with fast riffs and low guttural vocals in true grindcore fashion, and there are more tracks. But my final score, 8.3 out of 10. I like this one a lot. I never listened to the band before, but I like the concept of dedicating an entire album to road-based horror. That's something I've never seen another band do. If you know of another band that has done that, let me know. But I think they pulled it off very well. Number 4 is Necronomicon Ex Mortis out of Chicago with the EP Zombie Blood Nightmare, released February 20th. These guys are a horror-themed death metal band. It's just a 6-song EP, and it's a love letter to 90s death metal. There's 80s shredding, B-movie horror, and all that good stuff. A notable guest appearance from Jeff Young, who played the guitar. Jeff Young from Megadeth, and he shows up on the opening track, Left to Die. He delivers a really great solo, so that alone is worth paying attention to. No More Room in Hell follows with a suffocation-inspired riff, pays tribute to Dawn of the Dead. Lyrics reference moles under seas and the endless march of the undead, and musically is a brutal sprint of tremolo riffs and spiraling solos. Chopped Up and Burned is the longest track of the EP at 7 minutes. It's an absolute pileup of death, thrash, chaos, and Jeff Young comes back for another guest solo on this one, along with Matthew Mills. The song is a tribute to the Evil Dead, and it basically collapses under the weight of its own excess, which feels intentional. Lumbering Bloodsucking Freaks has a mid-tempo groove that honestly should not work as well as it does, but the band locks into this weird, zombified rhythm and ends up being one of the more memorable tracks. Hungry for Brains is a full-on thrash assault built around diminished scales and features a guest solo from James Norton, who has a personal connection to the band's guitarist. And that song, I imagine it's about Return of the Living Dead, but I'm not really sure. And the EP closes with Demoni, named after the 1985 Italian horror film Demons, which is the most technically ambitious track on the record. Has time signature shifts, a brutal slam section, and the guitar work is outstanding. Final score, 8.4 out of 10. This was a lot of fun. Old school death metal with a lot of personality. We're at about the halfway point. I have something pretty different. It's Nightshade from Switzerland. Album is called Essence Divided. Nightshade is an avant-garde and progressive metal duo consisting of David Genillard and Thomas Wakinski. And the band has an interesting history. They originally formed back in 1998 under the name The Nightshade during the Swiss black metal boom, and later rebranded to Zycon and then disbanded in 2011. The project was brought back to life in 2019 as a duo, and the sound today is a dense fusion of blackened industrial metal, 70s progressive rock, dark psychedelic atmospheres. The album, in essence, divided the first installment of a planned thematic trilogy. It's about world mythologies and cosmogonies, whatever that is, and they have a production style which they call musique concrète, which means they use raw recorded sounds like gongs and breathing and vocal textures, and well as actual instruments. So As for the songs, Stateless Journey opens the album. It's strange in the best way. There are creepy synths, evil sounding choir vocals, a symphonic layer underneath it all, and then black metal vocals on top. It should be a mess, but somehow it works. Origins of Light is a little more straightforward by comparison. It leans into black and thrash and gives you something to hold on to. The first track threw you off. The Crucible goes back to the experimental territory with heavy synth and electronic elements and darker baritone vocals and black metal sections that are woven throughout. Dissonant Void surprised me with a black metal meets post-punk sound, balanced out with some female vocals that add a completely different dimension to the track. And there's one other track. I played a clip of this in the beginning. It's called Of, Seas, and Seeds. More of an ambient electronic piece that pulls in new wave, post-punk, psychedelic rock, and does it all at once. Kind of a weird track. My final score is going to be 8.5 out of 10. The album's not going to be for everyone. It's challenging. It demands your attention. But if you go in it with an open mind, there is a lot to appreciate here. I have two more albums to talk about, and this is my second favorite. It's called Dissentience. They're from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and it's a concept EP called Kaiju. It was released February 20, 2026, and they are a progressive death thrash band. It's a 4-track EP built around one concept. The record follows the narrative of a colossal nameless creature as it destroys a city. So this is like Godzilla type of thing. They're pulling from classic Japanese monster films and Lovecraft mythology. The production, the riffs, the lyrics, the atmosphere, that they all serve that concept. Everything on the EP is intentional. And the EP opens with Obsidian Tomb. It starts with a somber acoustic intro, building tension before things explode. And from there you get blast-laden choruses, thrash-driven verses, groove-heavy interludes, all in the same track. Lyrically, it puts you in the perspective of civilized or terrified civilians watching everything fall apart. Another track I like, Chaos Absolute, shifts the narrative. It's more political and social, and it follows the initial attack. It opens with high tension, syncopated riff. There's a big groove, and then there's some of the heaviest moments on the record, and then a brief, clean bridge in the middle. Kind of gives you a second to breathe before everything comes crashing back. Then the title track, Kaiju, that was the one I played in the beginning. It's the climax of the whole thing. It's relentless, punishing, it doesn't let up. Guttural vocals, churning riffs, and a sense of urgency that feels genuine. And one more track, Death Shroud. This is the aftermath. The monster's gone, and what's left behind is all ash and grief and uncertainty and destruction. And the band leans into dissonance and atmosphere here. It's the most introspective moment on the record, and a really smart way to end it. Final score, 8.7 out of 10. It's a short release. I think there's a lot going on. There are lots of progressive elements, tempo changes, time signature changes, dynamic range between soft and heavy. It's something like really good, and I enjoyed it a lot. So my number one album for the week is someone who's kind of like an old school guy, someone who's been around for a while, Michael Monroe. He's a Finnish rock musician, frontman of the iconic glam punk rock band Hanoi Rocks. This is his 13th studio album, Outerstellar, released February 20th through Silver Lining Music. If you're not familiar with Hanoi Rocks, they were very big in the 80s, and bands like Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue cite them as a major influence. But as most of us know, the band lost their drummer Razzle in 1984 with Vince Neil in a car crash, and then after that, Michael Monroe just went solo, and a lot of this music captures that same raw and energetic spirit of his earlier band. But Outerstellar has 12 tracks, and it's kind of all over the place. There's punk, hard rock, glam. It's described as raw, no frills. And I will be honest, I went into it with certain expectations, and it exceeded all of them. There's a lot of variety here. Michael Monroe pulls influences from all different decades of music. As for the tracks, Rockin' Horse, that's the first track. It's very fun, 1970s punk rock with, it has this Iggy and the Stooges type of sound. Shinola was one of the more unexpected tracks. It's like a cross between Bruce Springsteen and 2000s pop punk, and sounds like a weird combination, but they make it work, or he makes it work, and it's a fun track. Black Cadillac. This one a little more straightforward. It has that call and response between the vocals and the guitars. When the Apocalypse comes, it's more of a ballad-oriented, something that's like Bon Jovi meets Bob Dylan. Kind of another weird combination, but again, he does it well. Painless brings this darker 90s grunge. Instrumentally, it's something along the lines of Smashing Pumpkins, but it has the vocals of Michael Monroe's glam rock vocal delivery. So it's kind of like unique in itself. Neutron Bomb is just classic punk rock worship along the lines of Bad Religion and Glitter and Dust. That's another track towards the end. It's more like 80s style power ballad in the vein of Poison. Again, there are more tracks. But my final score will be 9 out of 10. The range is very impressive. Everything from David Bowie, 80s heavy metal, punk, glam, grunge, it's all here. And he holds it together in one cohesive record. That's why it's my favorite release, and I didn't really expect it going in. Check out last week's episode. That will be appearing on the screen right now. And thanks for watching. Please like the video. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you're not already. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more in this weekly metal series. So thanks for watching. See you in the next one.